The huge meeting room was full of strange sounds and colors. More than 1,000 different alien species sat in their special chairs, all waiting for the meeting to start. Some looked like giant bugs, others like walking trees, and some were just floating balls of light. They all came from different planets across the galaxy. Ambassador Jake Morrison walked slowly to the center of the room. He was wearing his best black suit and tie, just like he did for every important meeting. Next, to him walked Amy Carter, a young woman in a crisp military uniform. She carried a small computer and several files under her arm. Jake was not very tall, and he had brown hair that was starting to turn gray. He had been Earth's main speaker at these meetings for 2 years now. All the alien species knew him well. They also knew that humans were always very polite and never caused any trouble. The other aliens often made jokes about humans behind their backs. They said humans were too soft and too nice. They said humans always said please and thank you. Too much. Some aliens thought this made humans weak and stupid. "Honored friends and fellow members of the council," Jake said into his microphone. His voice was calm and friendly, just like always. "Thank you for giving us time to speak today. I want to talk about something very important that is happening in the Kepler 442 star system." A tall crystal being named Kepler made a loud noise. He was from the Zifrian Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful groups in the galaxy. His crystal body flashed red, which meant he was annoyed. "Oh no, not this again," Kepler said. His voice sounded like breaking glass. "The humans want to complain about some mining work. Do we not have better things to talk about?" Jake smiled. Politely, Amy noticed that his hands were gripped tight behind his back, but his face stayed calm and friendly. "I understand your concern, friend Kepler, but we are not talking about simple mining. We are talking about what is happening to the people who live on those planets." Slimy, slug-like creature slithered forward in his chair. This was the speaker for the Hegemony, a group that controlled hundreds of star systems. Green slime dripped from his mouth as he talked. "People." The slug creature laughed. "Those things in the Kepler system are not real people. They cannot even fly to other planets yet. They are like animals. Our laws say we can do what we want with planets full of animals." Jake's smile got a little tighter, but he kept his voice soft and polite. "Well, yes, they have not built spaceships yet, but they are not animals. They make art and music.
Oh.
They have families and cities. They laugh and cry and dream, just like we do. They are people, even if they are different from us." The room filled with angry sounds. Some aliens made clicking noises with their claws. Others released bad-smelling gas clouds to show they were upset. A few aliens actually turned their chairs around so they would not have to look at Jake. One alien that looked like a giant spider waved all 8 of its legs in the air. "The humans think they know better than everyone else," it said in a high, squeaky voice. "They have only been in space for a few hundred years. We have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Who are they to tell us what is right and wrong?" Amy leaned close to Jake and whispered in his ear. "Sir, I just got a message from Captain Lewis on the scouting ship. The report you asked for is ready. It's much worse than we thought." Jake took the small computer from Amy and looked at the screen. His face did not change, but Amy saw his jaw muscles get tight. The pictures on the screen showed terrible things. The aliens were not just digging for metals and crystals. They were dropping bombs on cities full of innocent people. "My friends," Jake said, his voice still sounding kind and patient, "I think there might be some confusion about what is really happening in the Kepler system. May I show you some pictures?" The big screen at the front of the room lit up. It showed a beautiful blue and green planet with white clouds. Cities could be seen from space, connected by roads and rivers. It looked peaceful and lovely. "This is Kepler 442b," Jake explained. "Home to about 8 billion intelligent beings. They have built a civilization that has lasted for over 3,000 years. They have never fought a war with another planet because they have never met anyone from another planet." The picture changed to show the same planet, but now there were huge ships in orbit around it. Bright lights flashed down from the ships to the planet's surface. Where the lights hit, everything turned black and empty. "This picture was taken yesterday," Jake said quietly. The room became very quiet. Even the aliens who had been making noise stopped to look at the screen. The beings who live on this planet do not have space weapons, Jake continued. They cannot fight back against ships in orbit. They are trying to hide in caves and underground, but the bombing continues every day. A new alien spoke up. This one looked like a walking flower with eyes on stalks. But the law is clear, it said in a voice like singing birds. If a species cannot travel between stars, they have no rights under council law. This is how it has always been. Jake nodded slowly. Yes, I understand that is what the law says. But perhaps we should think about whether the law is right. This made the room explode with angry noises. Aliens jumped up from their seats. Some started yelling at Jake in languages that the translation machines could not understand. How dare you, screamed the slug creature. You suggest we change laws that have kept peace in the galaxy for 10,000 years, just because you humans feel sad about some primitive creatures? Jake waited for the noise to calm down. He did not raise his voice or look angry. He just stood there with his hands behind his back and his polite smile on his face. I am not trying to cause problems, Jake said when it was quiet again. I just think that maybe when we have the power to protect innocent people, we should use that power to help them instead of hurt them. More angry sounds filled the room. The crystal being flashed bright red again. The humans are too emotional, Kepler said. They let their feelings make them stupid. This is why they should not be allowed to speak about important things.
Amy
Watched Jake carefully. She had worked with him for 3 years, and she knew all his expressions. Right now, he looked the same as always, calm, polite, and patient. But something was different. There was a coldness in his eyes that she had never seen before. I see, Jake said softly. So the council believes that caring about the lives of innocent people makes us too emotional to have opinions about right and wrong. Exactly, said the spider alien. You humans cry about every little thing. Real leaders make hard choices, cannot save everyone in the galaxy. Jake was quiet for a long moment. The room waited to see what he would say. Jake said finally. You might be right. Maybe we humans are too emotional. Maybe we do you care too much about people we have never met? Some of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. But I wonder, Jake continued, his voice still soft and kind, what you will think when you realize that our emotions are the only thing that has been keeping you safe. The room went completely silent. No one understood what Jake meant, but something about the way he said it made them all feel nervous. Jake looked around the room at all the different aliens. His smile was still there, but now it looked different somehow. It looked like the smile of someone who knew a secret that no one else knew. We will give you 3 days to think about this, Jake said. 3 days to decide if you want to help the people of Kepler 442, or if you want to continue pretending that their lives do not matter. And if we decide their lives do not matter, it's the slug creature, trying to sound brave. Jake's smile got a little wider. Then you will learn something new about humanity. With that, Jake and Amy walked out of the meeting room, leaving behind a room full of confused and worried aliens. 3 days passed slowly. Jake Morrison sat in his small office at the council building, staring out the window at the busy alien city below. His black suit jacket hung on a chair, and his tie was loose around his neck. For the first time since coming to the council, he looked tired. Amy Carter walked back and forth across the small room. She had been doing this for an hour, and Jake could tell she was getting more upset with each step. In her hand, she held a small computer that kept beeping with new messages. Sir, Amy said, stopping to look at Jake. Captain Lewis just sent another report. It's getting worse. Jake closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. Tell me. Amy looked at the computer screen. Her face was pale and her hands shook a little. The hegemony ships have destroyed 3 more cities on Kepler 4b. They used some kind of fire weapon that burned everything for miles around. The people who lived there, they're all gone, sir. All of them. It was quiet for a long time. Outside the window, alien children played in a park while their parents watched. They laughed and ran around, safe and happy. It's just like the children on Kepler 4, for it to be had been doing a week ago.
How many? Jake asked quietly. Captain Lewis thinks about 200 million people died today, sir. The aliens are not just mining
Anymore? They are killing everyone on purpose. Jake opened his eyes. Amy had never seen him look like this before. His face was very calm, but his eyes were cold and hard like ice. And what did the council say about this? Amy looked at her computer again. Chairman Vexla says they need more time to study the situation. He has called for another meeting next week to talk about maybe forming a committee to think about possibly looking into what might be happening. Jake laughed, but there was no happiness in the sound. A committee to think about possibly looking into genocide. How wonderfully helpful of them. Amy sat down in the chair across from Jake's desk. Sir, what are we going to do? We can't just sit here and watch while billions of innocent people die. Jake stood up and walked to his jacket. From the inside pocket, he pulled out a small communication device. It was different from the ones the council used. This one was made on Earth, and it could send messages across the galaxy without anyone else hearing them. Amy, I need you to set up a secure connection to Admiral Kate Sullivan at Earth Military Command. Also connect Colonel Dan Blake from the 3rd Expeditionary Force. Amy stared at him. Sir, you know we're not supposed to contact Earth Military. Without council permission, if they find out... If they find out what? Jake asked, putting his jacket back on. That we asked our own people for help while the council sits around making committees? I think I can live with that. Amy began working on her computer. She typed, she kept looking up at Jake. Sir, can I ask you something? Of course. We first came to the council. Earth told us to be very careful. He said we should always be polite and never make the aliens angry. They said if we caused trouble, it could be very bad for Earth. What changed? Jake straightened his tie and looked out the window again. What changed, Amy, is that I finally understand something important. What's that, sir? The aliens think our politeness means we are weak. They think because we say please and thank you, we cannot or will not fight back when something terrible happens. The communication device beeped, showing that the connection to Earth was ready. 2 faces appeared on the small screen. One was an older woman with gray hair and stern eyes. This was Admiral Kate Sullivan, the head of Earth's Space Navy. The other was a man with scars on his face and very serious expression. This was Colonel Dan Blake, who led Earth's best soldiers. Jake, Admiral Sullivan said, without waiting for greetings. I've been watching the council meetings on the news. Feats, they're not going to help those people, are they? No, Kate, they're not. In fact, I think some of them are making money from this genocide. Colonel Blake leaned closer to his camera. What do you need from us, Ambassador? Jake looked at both faces on the screen. These were people who had spent their whole lives protecting. Others, they understood what it meant when innocent people needed help. I need you to remind the galaxy of something they seem to have forgotten. What's that? Admiral Sullivan asked. That humans are the only species in known history who figured out how to travel between stars while we were still fighting wars with each other? Every other species in the galaxy learned to make peace first, then learned to build spaceships. We did it backwards. Colonel Blake smiled, but it was not a nice smile. Want us to show them what Earth's military can really do? I want you to save the people of Kepler 442, Jake said. I want you to stop the genocide, and I want you to do it in a way that makes every alien in the galaxy understand that humans are polite by choice, not because we have to be, Admiral. Sullivan nodded slowly. How many ships do you think we'll need? Jake thought about the reports from Captain Lewis. The hegemony had sent almost 50 big warships to the Kepler system, plus hundreds of smaller ships. It was one of the largest fleets anyone had ever seen. The hegemony has about 400 ships in the system, Jake said. 400, Colonel Blake whistled. That's a lot of firepower. Jake's expression did not change. How many ships will you need to stop them? Admiral Sullivan and Colonel Blake looked at each other. They seemed to be having a silent conversation. With their eyes. 6 ships should be enough, Admiral Sullivan said finally. Amy made a small noise of surprise. 6 ships against 400? Sir, that's impossible. Admiral Sullivan looked at Amy through the screen. Young lady, you've been working with the council for too long. You've forgotten something important about humanity. What's that, ma'am? We've been pretending to be a peaceful species for the last 50 years, but we never actually stopped making weapons, just got much better at hiding them. Colonel Blake leaned back in his chair. Aliens think they know what human technology can do because they've seen our exploration ships and trade vessels. What they don't know is that those ships are basically flying wagons compared to what we keep in our military bases. Jake felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. For 3 years, he had tried to solve problems with words and patience and politeness. He had believed that reasonable people could always find peaceful solutions to their disagreements. But the aliens in the council were not reasonable people, were bullies who thought kindness was weakness. They were willing to watch billions of innocent people die rather than admit they might be wrong. "Kate," Jake said quietly, "I want you to understand something. I have spent 3 days trying to save those people through diplomacy. I have been patient and polite and respectful. I have followed every rule and every tradition." And they laughed at me. They said caring about innocent people makes me too emotional to have opinions about right and wrong. Admiral Sullivan's face got very serious. "I see, so now I want you to show them what happens when humans stop being polite?" "What are your orders, Ambassador?" Colonel Blake asked. Jake walked back to the window and looked out at the alien city. Somewhere out there, in the council building, hundreds of alien leaders were probably having dinner and making jokes about the silly humans who cared too much about people they had never met. "Save the people of Kepler 442, Jake said. "Stop the genocide. And make sure every alien in the galaxy understands that Earth's politeness comes with conditions. And if some of the aliens try to stop us?" Admiral Sullivan asked. Jake turned away from the window and looked directly into the camera. Amy had never seen him look like this before. Gone was the diplomatic smile and the careful words. What remained was something much more dangerous. Then they will learn why humans are the only species who had to invent the word war crimes. The connection ended, leaving Jake and Amy alone in the quiet office. Outside, alien children still played in the YAF park, unaware that everything was about to change. The emergency meeting alarm rang through the council building at 6 in the morning. All the aliens hurried to the main meeting room, confused and worried. Emergency meetings were very rare, and they usually meant something bad was happening. Somewhere in the galaxy, Jake Morrison and Amy Carter walked into the meeting room just like they did every other day. Jake wore his usual black suit and tie. Amy carried her computer and files. They looked exactly the same as always, but something felt different to the other aliens in the room. The slug creature from the Gemini was making angry noises and leaving. Slime trails on his chair. His eye stalks waved around as he tried to get everyone's attention. "Fellow council members," the slug said through his translator, "we have called this emergency meeting because the humans have done something terrible. They have sent warships into our territory without permission." The room filled with surprised sounds. The aliens turned to look at Jake and Amy. Some made clicking noises with their claws. Others released worry smells into the air. Chairman Vexilith, a tall alien that looked like a walking stick with too many arms, tapped his speaking rod on his desk. "Order, order. Let us hear what the hegemony has to say." The slug creature made his chair spin around so he could face Jake directly. "Human Ambassador, our sensors have detected 6 of your ships moving through space toward the Kepler system. These ships crossed into our territory without asking for permission. This is against council law." Jake stood up slowly and walked to the speaking area in the center of the room. His movements were calm and careful, just like always. But Amy noticed that other aliens seemed nervous as they watched him. "Honored friends," Jake said in his usual polite voice, "I think there might be some confusion about what our ships are." "Doing confusion?" Crystal Being Kethfer flashed bright red. "Your warships are in our space. Where's the confusion in that?" Jake tilted his head slightly like he was thinking about something interesting. "Well, you called them warships. I think that might be where the confusion starts." The room became very quiet. Even the background humming of the translation machines seemed to get softer. "What do you mean?" asked the spider alien, all 8 legs tapping nervously on his chair. Jake's. The smile came back, but it was different now. It was still polite, but there was something behind it that made several aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. "I mean, those are not warships," Jake said simply. "We do not call them warships when they are on a mission to help people." Amy pressed a button on her computer. The big screen at the front of the room lit up, showing pictures from space. 6 sleek ships moved through the darkness between stars. They were beautiful and graceful, like metal dolphins swimming through an ocean of stars. What you are seeing, Jake explained, are humanitarian vessels. They are going to the Kepler system to provide aid and protection to the people who live there. The flower-like alien with eyes on stalks made a high singing sound. But we have never seen human ships like these before. Where did they come from? Jake clasped his hands behind his back and looked around the room. That is a very good question. Amy, would you please show our friends the technical specifications? Amy typed on her computer. The screen changed to show detailed pictures of the human ships. Numbers and charts appeared next to each ship, showing their size, speed, and equipment. The room exploded in shocked sounds as the aliens read what was on the screen. The human ships were much larger than they had appeared from a distance. They carried equipment that none of the aliens recognized. Most shocking of all, each ship had enough weapons to destroy an entire planet. This is impossible, whispered the collective representative, a blob of green jelly that spoke through vibrations. No species has technology this advanced. Where? Did you get these weapons? Jake's eyebrows went up like he was surprised by the question. Get them? Oh, we did not get them from anyone. We made them ourselves. Made them. The slug creature's voice got higher and squeakier. But your species has only been in space for a few hundred years. It takes thousands of years to develop this kind of technology. Jake nodded thoughtfully. You're absolutely right. It does take thousands of years to develop this technology if you are doing it the way everyone else did it. What do you mean? Chairman Vexeloth asked. Jake walked closer to the big screen showing his ships. When your species learned to travel between stars, you were already part of a peaceful galactic community. You had friends to trade with, teachers to learn from, and safe places to practice. You developed your technology slowly and carefully, with lots of help. The room was completely silent now. Every alien was listening carefully to what Jake was saying. Humans developed everything in complete isolation, Jake continued. We had no friends, no teachers, and no safe places. We had to figure out everything by ourselves, while our own people were still fighting wars with each other. Amy changed the screen to show pictures of Earth's history. The aliens saw images of human wars, with explosions and destruction and fighting. While you were learning to make peace and then learning to make spaceships, Jake said, we were learning to make war and spaceships at the same time. We had to, because we thought that when we finally met other people in the galaxy, they might try to hurt us. Crystal being Kepler flashed different colors rapidly, which meant he was thinking very hard. So you have been preparing for war this entire time? Oh yes, Jake said cheerfully. We have been preparing for war every single day for the last 300 years. We got very, very good at it. The slug creature made a gurgling noise. But you told us you were a peaceful species. You said you only wanted to trade and make friends. Jake's smile got wider. We're a peaceful species. We do want to trade and make friends. We just also happen to be extremely good at killing things that threaten innocent people. The screen changed again to show real-time images from the Kepler system. The 6 human ships were now close enough to see the hegemony fleet that was destroying the planets. There were hundreds of alien warships, all much larger than the human vessels. This is still impossible, said the collective representative. 6 ships cannot fight for 100 ships. Numbers do not work. Jake turned to look directly at the blob of green jelly. You are thinking about this wrong? No. You are thinking like someone who learned to fight from other people who also learned to fight from other people. You are thinking like someone who has rules about what is fair in battle. You are thinking like, what? Asked the spider alien nervously. Jake's expression changed. The polite smile disappeared, and what replaced it was something cold and dangerous. We are thinking like people who had to figure out how to win fights when we were outnumbered, outgunned and completely alone in a hostile universe. The screen showed the human ships moving into attack position. They spread out in a pattern that none of the aliens recognized. See, Jake said, his voice getting quieter. Every other species in the galaxy learned to make war by watching other species make war. You all fight basically the same way, with basically the same weapons, following basically the same rules. But humans learned to make war in a vacuum. We had no examples to copy, no traditions to follow, no rules to obey. We had to invent everything from scratch. The slug creature was making worried gurgling sounds. What are you saying? Around the room at all the different aliens, many of them were making nervous movements or releasing stress chemicals into the air. I am saying that you have never seen anything like human warfare, Jake said simply. And you are about to. On the screen, the first human ship fired its weapons. But instead of the bright beams or explosive missiles that the aliens expected, something else happened. One of the large hegemony warships simply stopped existing. It did not explode or break apart. It was just there 1 second and gone the next. How? Whispered Chairman Vexeloth. Jake's smile came back, cold and terrible. Trade secret. A second hegemony ship vanished, then a third. The alien fleet began to panic, firing their weapons in all directions, but their shots could not even reach the human ships. Please begged the slug creature, you have to stop this. Call off your ships. Jake looked at him with mock surprise. Stop, but I thought you said the people of Kepler 442 were just animals. I thought you said their lives did not matter. We can discuss this. You had 3 days to discuss it, Jake said quietly. You chose not to. On the screen, more hegemony ships continued to disappear. The battle was not really a battle at all. It was more like a demonstration of technology that the aliens had never imagined was possible. You want to know the difference between your species and mine? Jake asked the room. When your people developed interstellar travel, you were already civilized. When humans developed interstellar travel, we were still barbarians who had learned to make weapons that could destroy solar systems. The room was filled with the sounds of frightened aliens. The good news, Jake said, his polite smile returning, is that we really do prefer to be nice. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the battle through the main screen. Around her, human officers worked at their stations with calm efficiency. No one was shouting or panicking. They were doing their jobs, like this was just another day at work. Admiral said Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker from his position at the weapons control station. We have destroyed 23 enemy ships. The remaining hegemony vessels are trying to surrender. Kate looked at the tactical display, showing the positions of all the ships in the system. The hegemony had started with 400 ships. They had less than 350. The battle had been going on for exactly 8 minutes. Surrender? Kate raised an eyebrow. Did they ask permission from the people they were murdering? Before they started bombing cities? No, ma'am, Steve replied. Then they can wait a little longer to surrender. On the planet below, Colonel Dan Blake was coordinating with the ground teams that were setting up emergency medical stations. His voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. Admiral, we have teams on the surface now. The damage is worse than we thought. The hegemony was not just mining these planets, they were deliberately targeting population centers. Kate's jaw tightened. She had seen the reports from the scout ships, but hearing it from someone on the ground made it more real. How many survivors? Don, hard to say exactly. Looks like they killed about 3 billion people before we got here. There are still about 5 billion alive, but many of them are hurt or hiding underground. Back in the council chamber, the aliens watched the battle in stunned silence. On the big screen, they could see the human ships moving through space like deadly dancers. Every time a human ship fired its weapons, another hegemony vessel simply stopped existing. The slug creature was making wet, frightened noises. Green slime was dripping from his body faster than usual, which meant he was very scared. This is impossible. Our ships have the best shields in the galaxy. Nothing should be able to destroy them so easily. Jake stood calmly at the speaking podium, his hands folded behind his back. Your shields are very good, he agreed politely. They can stop most kinds of weapons that exist in the galaxy. Then how are your ships destroying ours? Demanded the crystal being Kepler, his body flashing angry red colors. Jake's smile was patient, like a teacher explaining something simple to a slow student. Your shields can stop most weapons that exist in the galaxy. But our weapons do not exist in the galaxy. We made them ourselves, remember? Amy changed the screen to show a close-up view of one of the human ships firing, instead of the energy beams or explosive missiles that the aliens expected. The human weapon looked like it was tearing a hole in space itself. What kind of weapon? Is that? Whispered the flower alien, all her eye stalks focused on the screen. We call them reality displacement cannons, Jake explained. They do not actually destroy the enemy ship. They just move it somewhere else. Move it where? Asked Chairman Vexilith. Nowhere, Jake said simply. The ship still exists, technically. It just exists in a place where space and time do not work the same way. The crew is probably still alive in there, wondering why their instruments stopped working. Several aliens made sick noises. The idea of being trapped forever in a place where nothing made sense was worse than just being killed. On the screen, the battle continued. More hegemony ships disappeared as the human vessels moved through their formation like sharks through a school of fish. The aliens had been trained to fight in large groups using traditional tactics that had worked for thousands of years. But the humans were fighting like no one they had ever seen before. Why are they not fighting back? Asked the spider alien, all 8 legs tapping nervously. The hegemony has some of the best weapons in the galaxy. Jake tilted his head thoughtfully. They are fighting back. Look carefully. Amy zoomed in on one section of the battle. The aliens could see hegemony ships firing their weapons at the human vessels. Bright energy beams and explosive missiles flew through space toward the human ships. But when the weapons hit, nothing happened. Human ships just kept moving, like nothing had touched them. Your weapons cannot hurt our ships, Jake explained. It's not because our shields are better than yours, but because our ships are not really there. What do you mean not really there? The collective representative's green jelly body was shaking with confusion. They are what we call phase-shifted, Jake said. They exist in normal space just enough to fire their weapons, but not enough for your weapons to hit them. It is very complicated technology. We invented it during one of our wars when we needed to fight enemies that were much stronger than us. The room fell silent except for the sounds of frightened aliens. On the screen, the human ships continued. Their work, they moved through the hegemony fleet like ghosts. It's untouchable and unstoppable. Admiral Sullivan's voice came through the communication system from her ship. Ambassador Morrison, we have a situation here. Some of the hegemony ships are trying to escape toward the outer planets where more civilians are hiding. Jake's expression did not change, but his voice got colder. Do not let them reach the civilians, Admiral. Understood, sir? On the screen, the aliens watched as 2 human ships moved to intercept the fleeing hegemony vessels. The enemy ships were faster and had a head start, but it did not matter. The human ships simply disappeared from one place and appeared in another. Blocking the escape route? They can teleport? The slug creature's voice was high and squeaky with fear. We prefer the term tactical displacement, Jake corrected politely. It is very useful when you need to be somewhere quickly. The fleeing hegemony ships fired all their weapons at the human vessels blocking their path. For a moment, space was filled with enough energy to melt a moon. When the light faded, the human ships were still there, completely undamaged. This is not possible, whispered Chairman Vexilith. No technology can do these things. Jake turned to look directly at the tall, stick-like alien. Keep saying that, but you are watching it happen right now. Perhaps your understanding of what is possible needs to be updated. Colonel Blake's voice came through the communication system again. Admiral, we have set up medical stations in 12 major population centers. The local people are very grateful. For our help, they want to know if we are gods. Jake laughed softly. Tell them we are just humans who do not like bullies. On the screen, the last of the fleeing hegemony ships disappeared into nowhere. The battle was effectively over. In less than 20 minutes, 6 human ships had completely destroyed a fleet of 400 vessels without taking any damage themselves. The remaining hegemony ships are asking for permission to surrender, reported Admiral Sullivan. Jake looked around the council chamber at all the frightened alien faces staring at him. What do you think, honored council members? Should we accept their surrender? Yes. The slug creature practically screamed. Yes, please accept their surrender. Jake nodded thoughtfully. Admiral Sullivan, please accept the surrender of any hegemony vessels that lay down their weapons immediately. Any ship that continues to threaten civilians should be moved to nowhere. Understood. Ambassador, The screen showed the remaining hegemony ships powering down their weapons and sending surrender signals. The battle was over, but everyone in the council chamber knew that everything had changed forever. "Now," Jake said, turning back to face the assembled aliens, "I believe we were discussing the protection of innocent people. Does anyone still think that caring about others makes humans too emotional to have opinions about right and wrong?" Room was completely silent. No alien wanted to be the first to speak after what they had just witnessed. Jake's polite smile returned. "I thought not." 1 week later, the council meeting room looked very different. The same aliens sat in their same chairs, but everything felt changed. When Jake Morrison walked into the room, conversations stopped. When he smiled and said, "Good morning, aliens," actually moved away from him. Jake wore the same black suit and tie he always wore. Amy Carter walked beside him, carrying the same files and computer. They looked exactly the same as they had a week ago, but now everyone knew what humans were really capable of. Chairman Vexeloth tapped his speaking rod on his desk with shaking hands. "The council will now hear the weekly report from the human delegation." Jake walked to the center of the room just like he had done hundreds of times before. But this time, no alien interrupted him or made rude noises. They all sat very quietly and waited for him to speak.
"Honored friends," Jake began in his usual polite voice, "I am happy to report that the humanitarian mission in the Kepler system is going very well." Amy activated the big screen. Instead of showing weapons and battles,
it now showed pictures of people working together. Human doctors were treating injured aliens. Human engineers were helping to rebuild destroyed cities. Human teachers were helping alien children who had lost their families. The surviving population of Kepler 442 has been provided with medical care, food, and temporary shelter, Jake continued. "We estimate that permanent housing and infrastructure will be completed within 6 months." The slug creature from the hegemony raised one of his eye stalks nervously. He was much smaller than the one who had been there before. And ... "And the cost of this operation, Ambassador Morrison?" Jake's smile was warm and friendly. "Please do not worry about the cost. This is a gift from humanity to the people of Kepler 442. We are not asking for any payment." Several aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They understood what Jake was really saying. Humanity had just shown that they could project massive military and economic power across the galaxy without even breathing hard. However, Jake continued, and the room got very quiet. "We do have some concerns about what we discovered during our investigation of the Kepler situation." Amy changed the screen to show a complex web of financial records and business connections. Lines connected different companies and government agencies across dozens of star systems. "Our investigation revealed that the genocide in the Kepler system was not just about mining resources," Jake explained. "It was part of a much larger pattern of exploitation targeting non-space-faring species across 17 different systems." The room erupted in nervous sounds. Aliens clicked their claws, released stress chemicals, and made worried noises in their own languages. The web of connections on the screen showed that many council members and their businesses were involved in similar operations, Jake said, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "We understand that these operations were technically legal under current council law, and we deeply respect the rule of law." The way he said deeply respect made several aliens start sweating, even the ones who did not normally sweat. "But we have decided to make some changes to how we approach these situations in the future." Walked closer to the screen showing all the illegal operations. "We are establishing what we call humanitarian protection zones around any system that contains intelligent life, regardless of their technological development. These zones will be monitored by human forces. You cannot do that."
Ow.
Being Kepler flashed bright red. "The Council has authority over all galactic law." Jake looked at him with the same patient expression a teacher might use with a child who was not understanding a simple lesson. "Actually, we can do that. We checked very carefully. There is nothing in Council law that prevents a member species from protecting other species from harm." Amy displayed the relevant sections of Council law on the screen. The legal language was complicated, but the meaning was clear. Humanity had found a way to legally protect innocent people without technically breaking any rules. Of course, Jake continued, we are hoping this will not be necessary. We are hoping that the Council will see fit to update its laws to provide proper protection for all intelligent species, regardless of their technological development. He paused and looked around the room. We are hoping that the member species will voluntarily stop exploiting helpless populations. Another pause. The room was so quiet that the only sound was the humming of the air circulation systems. We are hoping, Jake said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, that we can go back to being polite. The threat was clear to everyone in the room. Humanity's politeness was a choice, not a weakness. They could choose to stop being polite whenever they wanted. The flower alien with eyes on stalks spoke up in her singing voice. But Ambassador Morrison, what if some species object to these protection zones? What if they try to interfere with your humanitarian work? Oh, Jake's smile got a little wider. That is a very good question. Amy, would you please show everyone our new diplomatic protocol for handling interference with humanitarian operations? Typed on her computer, screen changed to show a simple flowchart with only 3 steps. Step 1. Ask nicely for the interference to stop. Step 2. Ask less nicely for the interference to stop. Step 3. Make the interference stop. We find that most reasonable people respond well to steps 1 and 2, Jake explained. Step 3 is reserved for people who are not reasonable. Spider Alien raised all 8 of his legs nervously. And what exactly does Step 3 involve? Jake looked directly at him. Step 3 involves reminding people that humans are very good at making problems go away permanently. Several aliens made choking or gasping sounds. The implications of Jake's words were terrifying to think about. But we really prefer steps 1 and 2, Jake added cheerfully. Step 3 is messy and makes paperwork complicated. Chairman Vexeloth cleared his throat nervously. Ambassador Morrison, perhaps the Council should discuss these new protection zones in committee before any final decisions are made. Jake's expression did not change, but somehow his smile seemed more dangerous. Oh, I am afraid there is some confusion. You're not asking for permission to establish these protection zones. We are informing you that we have already established them. The room erupted in panicked chatter. Aliens jumped up from their seats and started talking rapidly in their own languages. As of this morning, Jake continued over the noise. Human monitoring stations have been deployed around 43 star systems containing pre-spaceflight civilizations. Any attempt to harm the inhabitants of these systems will result in immediate intervention. Amy activated a new display showing a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the location of each protected system. There were a lot of red dots. This is outrageous, screamed the hegemony representative. Cannot just declare parts of the galaxy to be under human protection? Jake tilted his head thoughtfully. Right. We cannot declare parts of the galaxy to be under our protection. For a moment, the aliens looked relieved. But we can declare that we will protect innocent people wherever we find them, Jake continued. And we can enforce that declaration with the same technology you saw demonstrated in the Kepler system. The relief disappeared from the aliens' faces. The good news, Jake said, walking back toward his seat, is that this does not have to affect most of you at all. If you are not in the business of murdering innocent people for profit, then you have nothing to worry about. He sat down and straightened his tie. We are still the same polite, friendly humans we have always been. We still want to trade with you and learn from you and be good neighbors. Jake's smile was warm and genuine. We just want to make sure that everyone understands the difference between politeness and weakness. The room fell silent. Every alien in the chamber understood that the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted permanently. Now then, Jake said pleasantly, is there any other business the Council needs to discuss today? Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Nobody wanted to be the first to test humanity's new approach to diplomacy. Outside the Council building, alien children still played in the park, but now their parents watched the sky nervously, knowing that somewhere up there, humans were watching too. The galaxy was a different place now. It was safer for the innocent and more dangerous for the cruel. And everyone knew that humanity preferred it that way.